How are we all doing? There I am now. There I am. I don't know what I was doing there. I was footering about with stuff, but I got there in the end. Hopefully, you can all hear me and see me. Welcome to Jim's Monday Malt Samples. It is, what is it? May now, is the end of May. Oh, May's been a long month, a horribly long month. But we got there in the end. And I thought it was time to get a little live stream in before the end of the month. I left off last month when I was talking about branding, I think it was, and I'd said that I wanted to do one on branding and marketing. Marketing is marketing's a term that I'm sure as we go along this evening we'll figure out what we make of it, what it means to us, etc. I don't want to dwell too much on it. I just want to sort of we'll have a go at it now, and then when it's done, it's done. Aye. Yeah, marketing. Yeah, I'm going to have a small sip. I haven't had a sip today, hardly. It's a Monday. Let's get into the chat room, see who's in. Donner past Tim in early doors. Good to see you, Tim. Whiskey Works, Graham. We'll hear from you after, Graham. Hell's Wid. Hello, Helen, and or probably Andy. Greg's Whiskey Guy, good evening. Gav's Drams. Gav, how are you, my friend? Hopefully see you later in the year again, Gav, for the Glasgow Whiskey Festival. Derek McGrainer, hello, sir. Whiskey with Molly Ben. Ben will not be joining us as a Highland tonight. I'm afraid something come up at the last moment. Papa Q, Jerry, how are you? Jimmy Legg, good to see you as always. Neil Laverty, we will also hear from Neil later on. Andy Cross. Andy, I've heard I got a message from Andy earlier on. There was a coin incident. He had an incident with one of my coins, so we'll get you sorted out with another coin, Andy. Whiskey Straight Al, we will hear from him, hopefully. Rob Smith, The Dark Side. Jeff Whiskey, I think I missed you, Jeff, there on the way past. So I'm sure there'll be a few more join us. And thank you all for being here. It always seems straight. I think because May was such a long month, I feel like as if I haven't done this forever. Des is in as well. Des, how are you? What am I sipping? Let's go on to what I'm sipping quickly before we go any further. So far tonight, this is what I've poured myself just for a little. Loch Lomond, the Cooper's Collection, made with 100% malted barley. This one, single grain Scotch whiskey. So we know that how they do that it's, although it's 100% malt, it's put through their column still. So this is why they can't call it malt. So when I think about marketing, I think about a lot of what I think about marketing is what it says on the label. And as much as I maybe don't watch as many of his reviews as I used to, as Ralphie always would have said, this is the contract between the producer and you, the purchaser. And I was chatting to the Highlands in the green room in the background before we started, and I think the thing is that I always find with these live streams, I always find with any videos, anything that we're sort of tending to be doing, it's almost always aimed at whiskey enthusiasts anyway, because most of us are whiskey enthusiasts that watch these things. I'm convinced of it. But I suppose there could be whiskey enthusiasts in training. There could be a lot of people watching these at a later date who have maybe just started their whiskey journey, etc. So those are the people then that we're sort of hoping to pick out as well and say, look, here's from a whiskey enthusiast point of view. And I feel most of us in here are whiskey enthusiasts. So we will hear the comments. You know, anybody that's new to this reading comments, you're reading the comments from whiskey enthusiasts there. So what we're saying is, what I'm basically saying is I'm preaching to the converted currently, but I do reckon that most people at a later, there will be people maybe come back at a later date, watch these things, and it'll be a lesson to them. I picked this bottle out for a reason. This bottle actually says a few things on it. So marketing to me, as I said, this is the contract between the producer and the purchaser. And there's a few things it says on this that we want to see. This is I quite like Loch Lomond branding. I'm not going to say this isn't marketing. I quite like Loch Lomond branding. I like their new branding even better. The stumpier bottle with the fatter neck. I think it's beautiful. Which I've said before, bottles don't mean a lot to me. I've just picked this one out as a starter because I poured it. But I'm going to get more in whenever I bring in my guests. Whenever the Highlands come on, I don't know. Maybe they'll pick bottles of their own. I don't know. I hadn't thought that one through. But so things like, it does say non-chill filtered. It appears there's something on this label that's giving up and going all over my hands. Non-chill filtered. This one's a 2022 exclusive release, Mizunara wood, cask finish, etc. Stuff like that. Probably doesn't mean an awful lot. There was one thing on this, and I actually thought it said it on the. I think that I thought it actually said it on the bottle, but I couldn't find it on the bottle. But I think it may have said it in the advertising for this on the website whenever they were selling it, that this was actually put out. And I swear I shared this with somebody. Maybe it was with the Highlands in the WhatsApp group, that it said something about this being cask strength. And it was advertised as cask strength. It's 50% ABV. If that's cask strength, it's hella lucky. I think that, so that's something that, for me, that's a term that seems to be getting used an awful lot now. Cask strength, and I mean, they're coming in at, it's 53, it's 54% no cask strength. If I find a whiskey, and here's a good example, that's cask strength, I'm expecting to find a point something percent on the label. SMWS. They're coming in at cask strength. They're going to. I didn't, without realizing, I actually picked out a ball which is 58.0. But the fact that it says 0.0, that if it was going to have something else on there, it would have been actual cask strength, which is well, sorry, here's another bottle, and I'll be opening this one tonight. The New Glen Scotia. Well, it's a New Glen Scotia. I just got this today. Single cask from Loch Lomond Whiskies. 58.7%. That's cask strength. It's natural strength. It's the actual strength at which it came out of the cask. Greg's Whiskey Guide. Even some official cask strength are not, in my experience, and I know it even more since I had some pro experiences. Natural cask strength speaks more to me, and often batch strength. Yeah, I would agree, Greg. I would totally agree with that. That cask strength, as I said, is a term that's being used a lot. That aren't necessarily cask strength. They are just stronger. And I think it's one of those things now that if they're stronger than 46%, that term cask strength tends to just get bandied about. So I did pick up a few, and I'm gonna throw up a picture on the screen here. So I've just literally a couple of labels. That's all I did, just a couple of labels, and I wanted to just look at them and say, right, well, this is the sort of, I'm going to say, no, I'll not use the term I was going to use, but so Jameson, a classic, and a label, and there's something, and one of the reason why I picked out the Jameson label was it says something on it, which to me, as a whiskey enthusiast, matters not really. Triple distilled, and it's the fact that it says triple distilled on it. There's a few other things in there that I would draw to people's attention if I was using this as a marketing, like Bow Street Distillery, Dublin, to me doesn't exist anymore. Am I wrong? I mean, Jameson's produced in Middleton Distillery in Cork, is it not? So that's basically them playing off their history, the fact that it used to be made in Bow Street. Triple distilled, it doesn't just say triple distilled Irish whiskey, it then repeats it, triple distilled, matured and bottled in Ireland. Well, that's true, fair enough. I still would challenge most people to tell me, if I set them down blind, a triple distilled whiskey versus a double distilled whiskey. In most cases, I don't think they would tell the difference. They would know the difference. This is a blend. What difference does it make? Whether it's, so obviously the grain element isn't triple distilled because it'll been through a column still. So the malt element must be triple distilled. But when you mix it with grain whiskey, what difference is that going to make, really? Now, Greg has said here the dress is not relevant then, question mark. Well, look, yes or no, but I mean, it's not produced in Bow Street. So that was the only reason I brought that up, was the fact that maybe I'm just being picky. Maybe I'm just being picky, but if the label's a contract, why not? I'm going to start and bring in a few guests. There's sort of 10 minutes gone. So somebody made the mistake. One of my guests tonight made the mistake of early on telling me that he had done his homework on this. So we'll see, shall we? And somebody will have a while. Hey, how are you, my friend?
All right, good evening, folks. All's well.
It is very good to see you again. I haven't seen you for a while. I know you've been busy. Just sorry, there's a few other faces. Jimmy Jazz, Jason Bradford has dropped in. Greg is saying he can feel the difference in some Bush Mills, to be honest, especially the original, but it might be, in fairness. So, Neil, you're keeping well?
Yes, keeping not too bad. I was just, when you put the subject up, what we were going to be chatting about tonight, I thought, just, you're talking about bottles there, but I just had a wee look at advertising. Now, I'd had, the first thing came up was the top 25 adverts for whiskey. So I'm going to read a list of names out, and I want everybody, you and everybody in the chat, to tell me how many you would actually buy. So the list is Bales, Glenfiddich, Johnny Walker, Jameson's, Jack Daniels, Glenlivet, Tullamore, Dewar's, Haig, Ballantyne's, Jura, Grouse, Chivas Regal, Grant's, and Wild Turkey. So some of them were doubled. But out of that list, I think I buy Grouse for hot whiskies, and I think I buy Jameson's to put over ice in the back garden. It's not really designed for you and me.
The thing, I know, and the thing is too, I was listening to you there, and practically every one of them a cheap, I don't know, coming off the back of the series, I was just doing a cheap or inexpensive blend.
Yeah. That advertisement on TV it's not for you and me, sure. It's not.
No.
It's a brand out there for your normal punter.
But that's the thing. You're not going to convince us to buy Bales or Jameson, or that is the thing. It's, and as you said, they're not for us, but it just shows that whoever they're paying is bloody good at their job if they're getting them.
Yes, in.
Yeah.
I mean, I even flicked up the latest ad that I had seen, and it was for Talisker, and the advertisement had a boat. Then you had the waves on the beach. You had the distillery looking from the water. You had a guy pouring it into an oyster and eating an oyster. And then, it was showing you the cask being rolled in the oak. And it was like, but it was actually, it wasn't even their 10-year-old. It was like Storm or something.
Storm or the Sky or something.
And all of us in here probably have had nice Taliskers at the time. But now the 18-year-olds went up to that price. You're overlooking that. You're probably going to overlook the rest of the line. So all that money spent is obviously for different markets, not for you and I as an independent, just the wee for the novice, for us to get in there and enjoy a good drink. It's not for us.
The problem is it's all that money's being spent that is pushing the price of the bottle up.
Yeah.
That's their excuse for why they're charging so much for an 18-year-old. As I would look at the money that's went into the market, and personally speaking, Talisker's a good example. Their more modern branding and all is, to me, is terrible looking. The older one, when it was just like a white label, I thought was a far more elegant looking thing. That cutout thing, and as you said, it's somebody's getting paid an awful lot of money to sell that to us. And do you know, if they're up there, if the likes of what that list that you just gave us, it's working for somebody, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
It's working for them. It's weird. I think we would actually, and I've maybe peaked too early here, but we would nearly need to be speaking to somebody who is new to the whiskey world and say to them, what sells whiskey to you? What is it?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. Then you were talking about getting a wee bottle, and the only real bottle I actually got the Ardmore Legacy. Yeah. And it pushes the brand on an eagle overlooking the distillery, and you've got a wee map on it. To be fair, it's something different, but the whiskey's just all right, isn't it? It's not.
That whiskey, I think Ardmore Legacy is one of those prime examples where it plays into what you pay for it. It's 20 quid a bottle.
Yeah,
I think it's actually, it's very good at that price.
Yeah, that's why I bought it. It was £22 in Tesco's, and it fills a glass, but it's not. Again, it's not. It's a good starter whiskey and that there, but it's not really. You could drink it in a nice evening just out the back or something, but it's not really to sit over and have a natter, is it?
Once again, and I'm maybe peaking a little early here, and I was going to do this at some point, so I may as well do it now. Marketing has just bypassed Springbank pretty much, is always the way I look at it. They haven't spent, basically they haven't wasted money on marketing. So that price that they have paid their marketers hasn't been shifted on to you or I, the purchaser.
Yeah.
This bottle, and if the label is the contract, this is the bit I love about, one of the things I love about Springbank. If the label is the contract, it says it's from Springbank. It says it's 10 years old. It says it's 46%. And if you care to read the back, it says it's non-chill filtered and there's no colour at it.
And
don't need any more than that.
No.
That is all you need. That's all I want. And the thing is, I remember listening to people in the whiskey community and them saying, I know, but it's a horrible looking thing. I couldn't give a shit. It's
what's inside. It's what's
exactly.
inside the bottle. It sells itself, doesn't it? It sells itself.
Hell's Weds saying, we asked that question of our youngest at the start of his journey, not swayed much by advertising, but more by word of mouth and recommendations. Totally agree. I couldn't agree more. It's the recommendation and word of mouth that sells whiskey to me now. It's not what it looks like on the shelf. I think we are long past the point of, isn't that a pretty bottle?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's like you said the other day, you go on to our forums where we're all members of, and it's like the temptation. Somebody puts something up there enjoying, and you're all looking at it.
It is the temptation of Christ. It really is. But it saddens me, as I say, that cost of marketing, something that we never asked for, is passed on to us. And that list that you actually gave us there is very interesting. It's weird how, and that was the top 25. Did you say that was them?
The top 25, because Johnny Walker was on it 3 or 4 times, and and some of the other ones was on it twice, and so there's a couple of bourbons. I say I starred Jameson's. Probably would have it over ice if you're looking at an easy sipper, and then grouse. My mother knows her whiskey, and she loves her grouse and her hot whiskies, and my brother couldn't get anything, and they give her Tullymore, and she held it up and says, "I'm not drinking that. That's not grouse."
The thing about it is, I would actually, if they're going to go into it, if they're going to market whiskey, I would suggest that maybe the back of a Jameson bottle says, this is a blended Irish whiskey. Here's how it works. We take, X amount of malt and blend it with X amount of grain whiskey. and yada, yada, yada. It doesn't have to be too in-depth, but just enough to give us an idea. Because when they talk about maturation in a blend, and they do it regularly, matured in the finest this and handpicked that. Well, what element have you matured in what? And like Black Barrel is a good example from Jameson. If you go into, if you poke around in what Black Barrel is, basically they add more pot still to the blend, and they re-char the casks.
Oh.
But that doesn't really, I mean, you have to poke around to find that.
It doesn't say it on the bottle.
Yeah. So what happens is that it's the person then that you're basically having to put the work in to find out. And I suppose at the end of the day, it gets back to the same thing about, you know, but why does it really matter? I suppose, what, you know, but the reason why I did this and the reason why I want to do it is because this shit does actually matter to me, because it annoys me. I would actually quite like to, I would be quite happy with a bottle that just said whiskey on it. There's yet again, I pulled it up a while ago. You know, there's a good example. Without that code, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And you know, then basically it's about the whiskey, and that's, as I said earlier, that's what matters to me. It's actually about the whiskey. It doesn't really matter about where it came from.
Yeah, I suppose even like the Glencairn 10, it's not it's just a label, you know, it's not flamboyant, but the stuff isn't good, and they don't go out of their way to put fancy bottles or marketing on it. And I used to say it sells as good as anything else.
Indeed. I've forgotten how this is riding in on the turf. Sorry. Cask Society. There you go. Now I'm 42. I imagine 42 is actually somebody tell me 42 is Kalila, is it? No, maybe. No, it's not. Highland. Leipzig. Possibly. Anyway. Now hang around in the background. We'll get you back in a minute, if you don't mind, if that's all right. Listen, I appreciate you doing your homework. I'll bet you the other boys didn't.
Give them lines. Give them lines.
They're shaking their heads at me. So. Listen, buddy, I'll bring you back in before we're finished.
Okay, man.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see Neil back. I've missed him. You know, you miss people when they're not around. Hellswed's saying it's Tobermory, so it is. I know this is peated, so it is actually Leipzig. Oh, and it's a good one. I think I'm actually just going to add water to that straight away. Just a tiny little drop. Now, who will bring in next? Do you know, he saw it. He's just joined, so I'm just going to add him now. Lee J. Oh, Neil's still in there. How are you, my friend?
Evening. How are you doing?
There's been people sitting around waiting much longer than you, but I just thought I'd bring you in anyway, just to surprise you. You keeping well?
Yes, mate, I am actually. Lovely few days with the bank holiday. Met with my brother today. Gorgeous weather. So yeah,
you were in the Cotswolds today.
I was, yeah. He only lives a stone throw away from the actual distillery, so I don't get up there as much as I should. I'll tell you.
You've been to the distillery before, but
yeah, not since the new stills have been commissioned. But a couple of years ago, took my brother and my dad up during the lockdown, so there's only a few of us on the tour.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's lovely.
Excellent. So,
what have I missed? I've been away. What have I missed this evening?
You haven't missed a whole lot. We were just padding out. You came. No, Neil did a list. It's very good. Obviously, we're still we're looking a bit at marketing, and as I said, I don't want to get too bogged down on it. So there's a few other people have joined in. Matthew Edgeworth's here. Artificial frequencies, who we know to be somebody else. Yes, it's actually frequencies. Artificial frequencies, he's called himself. Fernando, I think I missed you earlier on. and Kurt, and of course the Doc joined in. Sorry, just better get that in. Yes, marketing. Does it matter to you?
No, I was in my shed getting me whiskey, and I was just looking at Loch Lomond, and got the old version and a new version. And I think I've said this before. I never really noticed. I didn't notice the change, and the marketing is it's more of the FOMO for me, and someone suggests it, or people like yourself say this is good, or gotta get that. So no, that probably doesn't.
Yeah, I think Helen Hellswed said that earlier. That I mean, they sort of questioned one of their boys early on in his journey about what, that sort of thing. What did it matter? And I think they were the same. That didn't really matter to them. They said, it was more word of mouth, and so that's what I was that's what a lot of this is about. That marketing doesn't matter to us. Marketing doesn't make any difference, because we've seen through the crap very early on, that it doesn't matter whether they say. And I was chatting to some of the other guests that I'll bring in earlier before we went live, and I was saying to them, but you can tell me that a cask is handpicked all day long, and it's this and that. We can see through it now. The
pitch,
the hand-picked American oak.
Yeah, only in oak and water from the river and that.
Yeah, there was another one. I did actually have a couple up here. Macallan, I had to pull out Macallan into it. Now, in fairness, actually, this wasn't that bad. But I am getting just a little sick of the amount of people who, that Macallan still matters to. But this was a good, matured exclusively in hand-picked sherry seasoned oak casks from Jerez. Yet again, just tell us it's a sherry cask. That's really what matters. And yes, okay, Oloroso, PX, let us know what sort of sherry it was. But in this case, actually, we don't even know. Was it Oloroso? Was it PX? Was it? Now, probably if we were to look into it, Jerez maybe has a very specific sherry that's only for that region. And if we were to look into it, we would find out. But I look at that as I say, hand-picked exclusively even. There's a lot of cases whenever the word exclusively is used, it's like we'll give it 6 years in a bourbon cask first, and then
that's handpicked. We moved it from one to the next year.
Yeah.
Who's this special person handpicking it on? How come we don't know?
As I said, what's the alternative? Picked by a robot, picked by AI. So really hard. Well, I suppose they could say, but we had a choice of 300 casks, and we picked these 5. I'm actually helping them out here now. I'm digging them out.
I see you're doing it for them.
No, to me, it just doesn't. Handpicked doesn't cut it. And funny, I'm saying about AI. I did mention AI there, and I was saying that to one of the other guests before we went live that I was actually intending to do an AI label for this before we started, because we do it in work, we do it in the shop, where you read and you see the same things over and over again. Handpicked being one of them. Exclusive as a good buzzword. And as I said, European oak, American oak, etc. Well, you say American oak, we'll generally think bourbon. You say European oak, we'll generally think ex-sherry. That's an easy way of them getting out of saying which ex-sherry cask it is, because it maybe wasn't very good casks that we're getting, so they're just going, we'll go, it's European oak.
Yeah, covered a bit. That's it. Yeah, marketing's quite a bullshit. Excuse my French, isn't it? It is. It's just chucking a lot of words to say something. It's not really. It's uneducated.
As Neil said, there was a list. He had the top 25 list of the top 25 advertisers, and basically I don't know what way they created this list, but the bulk of them were all blends. cheap blends, inexpensive blends, you know.
Oh.
So these guys are obviously winning. They're doing all right, but it's the fact, as I said, they're passing that price on to the purchaser.
Yeah.
Of the marketing, of the advertising. You know, that has to come back, and somebody's paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah, they must have a budget, and they claim that back with whatever they're charging. No, I see what you mean. Because you get the other single malts and stuff like that, you don't get the marketing budget, I suppose, when they're starting out like Ardnamurchan. You don't see a lot of it's all word of mouth or social media, not like a big budget to put out on TV or anything like that.
And it doesn't make a lot of difference. I mean, there was a commercial kicking around before Christmas for, what was it? Which whiskey was it? I can't remember, but it was, whatever it was, and yet again, even Loch Lomond do this. And it's not on this, I don't think, but it was on some of their older bottlings where it was smooth to perfection. And that just, it was Jura. Actually, Ben's telling me it was Jura, and I think he was right. I think, well, Jura there was definitely a Jura advert blattering about for a long time. There's an awful lot of whiskey adverts hit the television late last year. I was highly surprised because, yet again, I think because we're whiskey enthusiasts, our ears prick up if something happens in the back. You know, if the word whiskey even gets mentioned, you sort of go, somebody said whiskey. What was that?
I mean, the latest thing at the moment for me is anything on a movie or a series, and you see a bottle being handed over on a bar or just angled nicely for the camera. You zoom in and say, oh, right, yeah, got that one.
Yeah.
No, why are they drinking that? That's not real.
That's crap. Yeah.
Real.
Yeah. But no, as I say, there's some of them are ridiculous. I take it you're drinking a Deanston tonight.
I am, yes. I'm trying to bottle kill one this week.
Good man.
Good
man. Funny, I'm still working through an old Deanston, one of the older bottlings of Deanston 18. I've had it for quite a while.
Is that the brownish beiges?
Yeah.
And they're a difference.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever tried them side by side. Before I kill it off, which I will do at some point, there must be nearly half a bottle of it there yet. At some point, I will buy one of the newer bottlings and try the two of them together.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what the older one's like. I don't think they've changed I haven't seen anywhere saying they changed the mash bill or anything or different.
I don't think so. Ben's asking, do you know what rugby team Glen Murray partner with? No. Somebody else does, but
what about that Snoopy girl?
Never born down here. Me and my sister? Anyway, Andy Cross is saying to you, Glen Gully, what does the
Glen Gully? Watch ya.
Oh, it's Edinburgh Rugby. Their brand is on the sleeve. Well, there you go. Yeah, I'll take their word for it. So that's one of those things that I suppose had a lot of these had that referendum got through in Edinburgh or in Scotland, sorry, that they were going to try and do away with the spirits advertising and the advertising of alcohol. So that would have made an interesting time, although I think it has been done away. I think they've basically quashed that one. Hopefully. So there you go. Lee J, I will pop you into the quiet room. That's all right.
No, pleasure.
And I'll get the next guest in, and I'll call you back before we finish tonight. All right, buddy.
All right, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, DJ. Yeah. So I don't know what he was. I kept seeing people in the chat asking what he was watching on TV. I have no idea. He's I don't ask Lee J questions like that. He's a big lad. If you ever met him. So no, and I'm starting to get the feel. There's two guests already, and I'm sort of just answering what I already knew anyway. We don't really care about marketing. McCallum Fenrir, the doc, is saying, "Are you sure that the light won't harm the bottles in your cabinet? Looks like radiation treatment." I know they are quite bright, Doc. In fairness, they're not off. They're not on that often. Greg's saying the sound. Did something happen to my sound? No, the lights actually aren't on that often, and I think that this is worse than this makes it look worse than it actually is. It's not just as bright as this would suggest. I'll get in my next guest, shall I? Because he has been very patient. He was in before everybody else tonight, so it wasn't fair to keep him in the background. Graham, how are you, buddy?
All good, mate. How's yourself?
Very well, very well. As I said, I apologize for keeping in the background. It was just the way people were popping up, and I think you and I we've already discussed this, and once again, marketing doesn't really matter to us. You mentioned, and I see you're wearing a t-shirt, like, so you've sort of you're literally wearing your colors there, but you did say it yourself earlier on, a couple of companies that we would tend to think of regarding marketing: Bushmills and Jameson, as you said.
Yeah,
Bushmills do push it, don't they?
They really do, big time. It's only going to get, I'd say it'll get worse with this new distillery opening. So once they get that visitor centre and everything going, that'll be it.
And I also think,
a big push.
As I said to you before, it's not just marketing with them, it's branding.
Yeah.
And I mean, they've been around for years. They're still telling everybody, and I think this one's farcical, that they tell everybody it's the oldest licensed distillery in the world. For a long time, they were telling people it was the oldest distillery in the world, I think. We seen through that one very quickly.
They soon changed it. They soon added that license.
Yeah.
They soon added that word in.
The thing is, that license word means nothing. It makes no difference. Yeah. We all know that license was issued in 1608, but that gentleman that it was issued to certainly wasn't still around whenever the distillery opened in 1787. No. Like, so, as I say, it means hee-haw, and but it's just something that they've been playing on. Daniel
if it sells the whiskey,
it sells. You see, that's what I was going to. That's what I was saying about Jameson earlier on. Triple distilled. Yet again, I'm convinced means nothing, but they've built a brand on it.
Yeah,
Jameson have basically hung their hat on triple distilled, and and fair play to them. Once again, the question. I actually asked myself this question earlier on. What then is good marketing? Well, Neil listed 25 of them earlier. Yeah. It doesn't matter what we think, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. If they're still selling the bottles, and Jameson are probably a good example because they're in the top 10 selling whiskies in the world. Johnny Walker are a good example because they're in the top 10 selling whiskies in the world. So they've got a marketing campaign and a whiskey good enough. Doesn't need to be fantastic, but good enough to back it up. You're just a brand tonight.
There's no other brand.
Yeah, I know. Look at you. Sponsored by.
I wish I was sponsored by them. I'd take that in a heartbeat.
McCallum finding if triple distilled was great, how about Auchentoshan? And well, I mean, it's awful stuff. And this is why this is a good example of it's triple distilled, therefore it's smoother. And anybody.
That's the whole Irish whiskey thing is, we do triple distillation to be different from Scotch and all this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one, as I said, it's 100% one of those things. We play a thing in the shop And I'm going to have to start mentioning the shop again for the simple fact that it's easier to tell you this way.
Branding and marketing.
Yeah, branding and marketing. We play a thing called Whisky Shop Bingo, and when somebody says something to you, you basically scored off. And and it's one of those things that eventually we'll get. So you get, what's the most expensive whiskey you've got? Oh yeah, I've got that one. What's the oldest whiskey you've got? Oh, I've got that one. Oh, my dad would love this place. I've got that. So that's the sort of thing. People ask, and one of the things that people say on a regular basis, triple distill smoother. Every time I sort of throw up in my mouth a wee bit, I just can't help myself. It's just and as much as so it lends itself to what the doc said here. Greg's saying some Auchentoshan are great, or we're great. That's fair enough, Greg. It doesn't change the fact that the bulk of the core range of Auchentoshan is as rough as guts, and anybody that gives you that smooth crap about, if smooth is a term we're going to use, well, it certainly doesn't lend itself to Auchentoshan.
No.
So I honestly think then we could take that. There's an example of a distillery sort of putting all their eggs in one basket and going, we triple distill. We're making an Irish whiskey in Scotland and all this crap. And if the whiskey doesn't stand up to what you're promising on the bottle or on the label or in using your marketing, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah, it really doesn't. All that matters is the liquid in the bottle. If it tastes like gut rot, nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
Word of mouth gets around.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Then it becomes that's when word of mouth actually starts to play back in. So your marketing, your advertising, etc., etc., doesn't matter a damn, because people still talk and always will. Always will.
100%.
And there's other examples of. I couldn't help but bring this out, like that.
That's case in point.
Yeah, the bulk of what we're paying for in that bottle is the look of it and the way it's been marketed, and that thing. Which, don't get me wrong, looks lovely. The bottle looks lovely. The thing looks, the 12-point stag, etc. It's fantastic. But I want to spend my money on the whiskey that's in the bottle.
Not something that's had E150A fired in it.
Yeah, and this is awful stuff. And that's the thing. People don't realize that whenever you say to them, I've done it with people so many times now.
Do you know? I'm just going to say there's more out of that bottle of Bells you had on that latest review than what there is out of that Dalmore.
I know.
That says something.
Well, don't believe. The way I had a short beard on that
you were
video.
cleaning the drains out, weren't you?
Yeah, don't believe what you see on TV sometimes. So as I tell people, and people don't realize this, that's natural color. That's the color whiskey will be if you use, and that's obviously fairly decently active casks to turn it that color. That's not natural color. I don't actually have. No. Hold on, maybe I do. People don't know this. People that haven't been told. This is the stuff that they aren't being told. They're being told it's smooth to perfection. It's this stuff's fantastic. What they're not being told is we added color to it, by the way. So you see whenever you actually tell
it smooths it out.
Yeah, you see when you actually tell people that, they go, "Really? Yeah, that's not its natural color. Like it's not even as close to as brown as that, probably."
No.
It's just depressing. It's bloody depressing, and yet again, this is what marketing is capable of, I think, and this is something that I think that the marketers will sell you something based technically on a lie.
Yeah,
but they won't. They won't. So basically, they're not necessarily telling you the truth.
No,
it's not that they're not necessarily telling you the truth. They're just not telling you all of the truth.
Yeah. Well, like I was flicking through bottles there, and the only one I managed to find that has all your percentages of each specific malt and non-chill filtered natural color Irish wise was Two Stacks, and it
Fair
has
play
it
to it.
all. It's all on the back,
Yeah.
every last bit of it.
No, that's excellent. That is clarity. I mean, I suppose
Yeah,
if it had wanted to, I could have broke out the Waterford and said, you know, it's the same. You scan that
I know.
bottle, and tell you.
Aye.
But no, I mean, funny actually. Do you, do you know where marketing is concerned? I quite like Waterford's, and the fact that, as I said, they do disclose everything. There's no, you know, they'll tell you if you scan that barcode, they'll tell you. I'm going to keep saying Waterford because I know mine's been up.
I had a feeling that's what was going to happen.
Waterford, Waterford, Waterford. I mean, you would, by scanning that barcode, they would almost tell you what the farmer's wife had for breakfast that morning.
Probably.
Not necessarily needed, and the problem is, once again, for all of their for all of that disclosure, it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter. And we've discussed this many times before, that whenever each ball's still different because they're maybe using a slightly different strain of yeast or a slightly different maturation. So, you know, that's something for a different time. But just their general marketing, I do quite like. I do like the wine bottle thing. I do like.
I will say the glass cork's a bit of a.
They're awkward. I just find them damned awkward. You know, it's a fight to get them out sometimes.
Although I found out with that Lemon Valley bottle as well, because it's the glass topper as well on it, and it can be a nightmare.
But you know, as I say, there's some cases. I was going to say some cases where it works. For me, once again, lack of marketing works because, as I said earlier, if that label just said whiskey on it, Scotch whiskey,
Yeah,
and I knew it tasted like that, I wouldn't care what else it said on the label. It's nice to know that it's unchill filtered. It's nice to know that there's no color added. But if it tastes right, feels right, yet again, does it even matter if it says on it non-chill filtered, no color added? The doc's asking, did you see the videos of Richard Patterson looking at a Dollamore dram saying, "Oh, look at that color. That is the ultimate marketing bullshit and cynicism." And I have to agree. That's the thing.
Yeah,
you know, when you're holding up a glass of that or holding up the bottle of that and going, "Look how fantastic that is." Say again.
See the video that he does of how to drink whiskey.
Yeah.
See the one he's swirling around and then bucks it in the floor.
Yeah.
That's that stuff.
Aye, that's basically, yeah. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, leave it on the floor.
Throw it on the floor and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Get some real whiskey, put it in the glass.
Mm-hmm.
Not Jura.
Right. Graham, hang around the background if you wouldn't mind, mate, and we'll bring in another guest and we'll get you back in at the end if you don't mind.
No bother.
Cheers, buddy. Good to see you.
Cheers. You too.
I saw Graham last week. We were at an SMWS tasting. Very good it was too. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to pour myself another dram only because the Springbank. No, I'm not. I've still got a clean glass there. So I got a bottle today. Loch Fyne, single cask, Glen Scotia. It's a 6-year-old. Yes, it's young. But it was, get this, £75. I just thought that was fantastic. I thought it was a great price. Too good a price to miss out on. So cask strength, obviously, 6 years. I think it's all, first fill bourbon. 218 bottles, distilled in 2016. 58.7%. So I'm starting to look into these sort of Oh, yeah. Right. I said I was at a SNWS tasting with Graham the other day. I was there with somebody else as well, and a pleasure it was to see him again. Nigel.
Evening, folks. How are we going?
How are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad. Yourself?
Very well, very well. Oh, this is good. This is good. Are you sitting the night yourself?
Yeah, I'm actually having a SMWS. See where my camera's at.
No, that wasn't the glass you stole.
Oh, no. No! This is the bottle here. It's Loch Lomond, actually. Loch Lomond, Inchmurren. So it is.
That's the peaty one, is it? Inchmurren? I can never remember. No, that's the fruity one.
No,
Inchmurren.
there's definitely no peat in that.
Yeah, that's the fruity one.
No.
This here's very perfumed. This Glen Scotia. Anyway, marketing. Does it mean anything to you, sir?
I mean, I suppose it kind of does a bit for, like, it should be to you as well. Are we not sort of marketers by proxy for these whiskies? You know, as YouTubers and Instagrammers and whatnot, are we not sort of doing marketing maybe for them? Even though it's on paper.
That's one of the things I hate about you, Nigel. You talk sense sometimes, and it's I don't know, you have actually hitting a fairly good point, because I suppose we are, in a way.
Yeah, but like every now and again, you'll get sent samples from people to do reviews. So essentially, you're carrying out marketing for them on their behalf.
Well, now, in my defense, I don't. I won't unless I won't review a whiskey unless I bought it myself. Basically, it's just something that I sort of hung my coat on many moons ago, and it makes.
Yes, at least you're impartial, I suppose. Like you
exactly. Well, I'll tell you why it happened with me. It was actually McMyra, the Swedish guys, contacted me and asked me to review a whiskey. Would I review their whiskey? And they sent me a full bottle of this Svensk that was at the time, and like a miniature of the Svensk Rock, and I did review them, and I didn't like either of them, and I just straight away I said, that's it. I won't review anybody else's whiskey, because I know. Now the thing is, I know that you'll give it an honest review no matter what, whether you like it or whether you don't. You'll tell us what you thought of it. I do see an awful lot. There's an awful lot, and it seems to be happening. Maybe it's just because it's the Irish ones that I'm watching, but there seems to be an awful lot of people out there now. Every whiskey's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, people are willing to give a good review just to get more samples from the next crowd.
Yeah.
There's a news story coming online. You see, I give good reviews, I get free samples for whiskey. Free goodies.
And at that point, that is full-on marketing. They are basically a paid marketer for that brand. I'm going to say paid. I mean, if they've been supplied samples and
paid in whiskey, paid in money, it's just paid in gains sort of thing.
Yeah. But as I say, it's just something that I don't know. Since that time with McMyra, I just never went back on it. But yeah, I suppose I can see your point of view. Certainly, if you're doing that, if you're reviewing, things that have been sent to you, and as I said about yourself, I know I read your reviews, and they're not all good. Like so, so you're, it's an honest review whether you bought it, whether it was gifted to you or not. Like.
Well, there's not much point doing a review if you're just going to fire out good reviews for free whiskey. You're not much of a.
You have no integrity.
Yeah, no integrity.
Thing, if you were just being gifted stuff and saying it was all good, in my opinion, you don't have enough integrity.
Yeah.
But the actual, from a whiskey point of view, does it matter what it says on the bottle? To you?
As long as what it says in the bottle is actually relevant to the whiskey, like as long as it's, like you said about the Springbank one, it says exactly what it needs to say, and as long as it says that, that's all you need. Mm-hmm. Like any of the rest of it's just dressing it up to try and sell it to people who are new to whiskey or don't really care much about whiskey. For the people listening to this chat, and like we all know we all have a good understanding of what whiskey is, so we don't need to be told all that crap. We see through that already.
It's quite interesting how, and yet again, I find it very relevant for the simple fact that I hear this every day of the week. Oh, that's a really pretty label.
Yeah.
Oh, that says that it's.
Some people buy with their eyes. People just go, "Oh, that's a pretty bottle. I'd like that for myself." Like that whiskey we were talking about before we come on air. Was it the Ogham, the new Irish whiskey? Yeah, it's like a 7-year-old whiskey, 46%. It's £65 for a 500ml bottle. Comes in a wee fancy tweed bag. You're probably paying £45 for the bag and the bottle because the whiskey couldn't be any more than 20 quid. So
that's the thing.
who's that aimed at? That has to be aimed at people that just want a pretty product.
Have a good product and you don't need to pay for the marketing.
Yeah.
If your product's good and you're proud of your product and you don't, you think it's as, Brendan Cologne.
Sorry, go ahead.
So Brendan Cologne was a good example. The Baron Tool, or however you want to pronounce it. The branding in it was atrocious. Now, don't get me wrong, the marketing. Well, he didn't even need to market it.
No,
it was going to sell out.
Yeah, he has a following that has more in it than there was bottles. So everyone, guys, was looking at bottles. So it's out the door straight away. You had actually, it was the same as the Redbreast Dream cask. You had them gone to a ballot system. So there's that much interest in it already that there's a ballot system. So you don't have to, market it.
Exactly, and to me, it's at that point, it's one of those things that it's a license to print money by the producer, because if they know that you're going to buy it and you don't have to pay a marketer to market it, well, then you everything's profit, or the bulk of it, what's coming in is profit. Agree?
Yeah, you're not wasting more money on the advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it in the past that the amount of money that must get paid to marketing, especially if you're a new distillery and nobody knows who you are. Well,
if you're new, you're going to have to. But once you're established, go back to Springbank again. You have to. That's a ballot system too. To get Springbank. So you don't need. You can have a simplistic design in your label because everybody knows what they're going for already. There's nobody really new into whiskey sitting on the internet the night before or on the day of it trying to get their name onto a list as quick as they possibly can to get a bottle of this because they don't know it exists. It doesn't matter to them. But to the people who actually know what Springbank is, they're like, can't wait to get into that. And sure, what's the point in putting fancy advertising on something that just sells itself?
Yeah.
You're wasting money.
I see. I just happened to notice above your right shoulder there, a Middleton, very rare, or Barry Crockett. It's one of those boxes anyway.
Very rare.
Middleton have become. I always describe Middleton now as having become in America, we talk about Pappy. It's Pappy's the really expensive ones generally. Scotland, Macallan, Ireland, Middleton, and especially the very rare series.
Yeah.
Or the Barry Crockett's. And they swung their market.
Bottles.
Sorry, buddy?
So it's not very rare at all. It's 20,000 bottles.
I know.
No.
And they swung their marketing recently with the boxes and the branding. They swung their marketing and their branding. And basically, yes, the branding changed to go to a cardboard box, basically.
Yeah.
Far more pattern thing. But the marketing changed with that, as in, let's market this as we're being
friendly.
Eco-friendly. Our box is biodegradable. Well, personally, as I said it, so's wood, surely. But the thing,
is it going to get the chance to biodegrade when it's sitting in somebody's cupboard for the next 100 years?
Once again, here's how they market it. Doesn't matter a shit what our whiskey tastes like because you're never going to try it, are you?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Most of the bottles are stored in the cupboard somewhere. Most people are just buying it to sell on the second way.
A very good question in from Ben, and it's right down this path. do we need a box or a tube? What do you think?
It depends what you're doing with it. If you're giving it to a friend or giving it to somebody as a present, the box and the tube's nice to have as presentation. But like if I'm buying it for myself and I'm going to drink it, I don't need a box and tube for it. Like I look below me here, I'm knee deep in box and tubes because I haven't got around to chucking them out yet. They're all empty. Most of the bottles are actually not even in the house anymore.
Once again, I think that they can serve a purpose. Of course, they can serve a purpose. Sometimes, and yet, that was the other thing I was going to say. That the non-initiated whiskey person sees a box and all of a sudden it's a more expensive looking thing.
Yeah.
I'm convinced of it. So as you said, if you're buying it as a gift, if it comes in a box or a tube, you've obviously spent more money on it because it came in a box or a tube.
Just turns it up a bit. It's like other wee things you get, like this wee scarf I got in the bottle of Scallywag. What else? I have another Wild Turkey 101 key ring.
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that there that comes in your bottle of whiskey that, people will buy it just because of the wee knickknacks that come with it.
And the thing is then, it's all right doing that. And those boxes, and don't get me wrong, the Middleton boxes are a thing of beauty. They still are. Some of the Redbreast single casks, with the flip top lid and all on them, the box themselves are a thing of beauty. And I was going to mention them at some point tonight. I was going to have to. Hinch have started boxing their bottles. I've never seen a flimsier piece of crap in my life. Now, this is from a man who owned Flexi Box.
Yeah.
I mean, Terry Cross, who started Hinch Distillery, owned Flexi Box. Well, he's brought Flexi boxes back into his process because it's the boxes are useless. For me, a tube or a box has to be functional first, and that function is to protect the bottle, either in transport or even you just slide it off the shelf. If you decide to keep it in the tube and you drop it, it's going to protect it. There's a lot of these that are putting them in the boxes. Lear have done it as well. Glens of Antrim Distillery have started boxing theirs, and the boxes are as flimsy as hell, and they wouldn't protect it.
I think it's not really for protection. I think that's more for
it's more for marketing.
More for marketing. It's the gifting. Exactly. Somebody, instead of just handing them a naked bottle, you're giving it a box. You can put a bit of wrapping paper around it, and it doesn't look like a whiskey bottle. You might have to open it and find out it's a whiskey bottle.
But that gives them right to charge us more money.
Yeah.
Because they're putting it in a flimsy piece of crap box and saying, but look, it comes in a box. So therefore I can charge you $5 extra for that bottle, and it's like, nah, I don't want the box. If I wonder how they would react if you walk. I mean, I don't know how I would react, but if somebody walked into the friend at hand and said, I want the bottle of Middleton Very Rare, but I don't want the box.
Mm-hmm.
It would be, you have to take the box. But I don't want it. You can throw the box out. I don't want it. And I'm actually, I've only just thought about that, and I'm thinking, that's enough to cause a row. Because, it's one of those things that you sort of have to have.
This is the other thing is too, you had to be a fancy box. So how much money are you going to knock off if that was an option? Because it's a fair box, whereas a tube, you could maybe knock off a couple of quid. But a fancy box of hinges and stuff, obviously going to cost more.
Do you know, I'm sort of, I don't know whether I'm putting up a fight for them or not, in that I quite like my bottles. I still like them to come in a tube or a box, a decent box, or a tube.
I like the option of having it. Like, obviously, the going on the shelf goes on the display without the tube and whatnot. But
well, this is what the Glen Scotia came in, and Loch Fyne themselves asked, whenever I was ordering, Loch Fyne asked, did I want the tubes? And I just said yes. Now, they delivered them, the bottles, in the inflatable package, the inflatable packaging.
Yeah.
So the bottles were in the inflatable packaging and the tubes were wrapped up separately. So they've obviously separated the two at source before they post them. So at that point, well, at that point, then you're into more expensive postage because they've taken the bottles out of the tubes, they've wrapped the tubes separately, they wrap them in bubble wrap, they wrap the bottles in. And I'm just looking at it and going, it's a bit overextensive here, boys. You've gone a bit far with this one. You know,
you're paying for it anyway. You know, like you go into an off license and buy a bottle, say a Pars Irish whiskey. It's 18, 19 quid, whatever it is. So you buy it without the packaging, 18, 19 quid. You buy it with the tube, 18, 19 quid. So, you know, sometimes you might as well have it back. You know, you can decide or not, or keep it for whatever. You can maybe use it for, I don't know what you'd use it for, like, but.
Well, I know what I used to use mine for. Well, one of them anyway, every time. Well, I suppose you don't have any kids, but it was one of those things that every Christmas that feckin' elf on the shelf had to come out in our house. And it was one of those things, must it? So I used to put it in the whiskey tube somewhere, and we ended up with about 6 of them because every year I put it in the whiskey tube and I forgot which one I put it into. So I had to buy a new one. Anyway, Nigel, thank you. It's always a pleasure. You always put me in the corner in some way, or shape, or form. And I do appreciate that actually because it brings more to the table.
The
best. Stay in the background. I will call you in at the end if that's okay.
No, not a problem. See you later.
Cheers, man. Yeah, Nigel always does manage to bring up a point, and it's always a very genuine point. And there was quite a few points that he brought up there that I thought, you know, are we marketing by proxy, as he says? Right, we have one more guest who popped in, so let's get him in before we get them all in as a bunch. Al, how are you, sir?
Good, Jim. If good was bad, yep, I'm not too bad. I'm keeping right.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I know you've had your health problems recently. I think we're all aware, and it's good to see. It's just great to see you.
I'm not so much Big Al anymore. I'm slowly, reduced Al.
Well, here, look, if you're on like the rest of us, you had it to lose.
Oh well, I thought I did.
But no, it is good to see you. Right, marketing, me now.
Yes and no. I think you're probably more aware of it now since you've been in the shop. That the marketing, I think, is probably aimed more at the newbie, you know, or the visitor who just comes in and wants to buy a whiskey and they want to hear a story. They'll want to get some BS, you know, some superfluous crap that's been printed, you know, just to put a romantic notion in their head of this whiskey. You know, it comes from such and such an area. We get the water from the local stream. It's the best water in Ireland. You know, we handpick our casks. They're the finest casks known to man. You know, they're not going to say, we get it from the shuck down the road and we buy the cheapest crap on earth so that we can make a maximum profit by bullshitting you, you know.
You mentioned something else there and you're 100% right. Water's another one. We use the finest water that bubbles down our glens, et cetera, is filtered through the heller. And I actually had a lady in the shop earlier this week, or late last week, can't remember when it was, who was very, very coy about her product that she was going to release. And it was water to add to your whiskey. And it was this very special water to add to your whiskey. And but I basically managed to get it. It wasn't her herself that I managed to get that prized out of. It was the guy that she was with who sort of introduced her. And she says, would you add water to your whiskey? And I says, of course I do. I says, ask any whiskey enthusiast and they will tell you that they add water to their whiskey. What sort of water do you add to your whiskey? Says, I tap water. But, you know, but that's the thing, you know, and it's like, look, it's the same water that made the whiskey. When you distill it to that point, doesn't matter a hell what sort of whiskey or what sort of water you're using. It's probably going to work, you know. And I'm sure the well-all they will all sort of say that their water's this and it's this water and that water. I personally, it's something that doesn't make a damn bit of difference to me, and I'm certainly not going to go out and buy special water to put in my whiskey. But as I said, when she left, she'll probably do all right.
Oh,
because there's enough mugs out there that if you tell them that the water has to be very special that you put in their whiskey, they'll believe it.
yeah, it's like I've spoken to a few people who have like off licenses and whatnot, and people come in, you know, visitors, you know, particularly from America, and you know, what nice Irish whiskey can I bring home? And they'll be told, well, here's one, here's one. Oh, I like the look of that bottle, the Saxton. Give me it. And it's purely based on the unique shape. You know?
Yeah.
I haven't said that. I quite like the Saxton. It's very
The thing
good.
is, I was going to say that, Al. Saxton, there's not a damn thing wrong with that. A young whiskey, yes, okay, 4 years old, 4-year-old Oloroso, but there's not a damn thing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And it's at the right price generally as well, about £25.
That's right.
And a great piece of marketing. I actually think it's good marketing. It is good marketing.
Yeah.
But then, and funny, we were talking about tubes a minute ago. Sorry, I mentioned somebody else. We never come out with that since. We were talking about tubes a minute ago, and it's like, hold on, did I word that correctly? We're talking about cartons and tubes for your whiskey, apart from there, as opposed to those other tubes we were talking about. But it dawned on me that Bushmills put out the original Bushmills original in a tube.
That's right.
It's like, why? Why would you waste your money on a? And the only people that are wasting their money there are Bushmills.
That's right.
Because they didn't put the price of the whiskey itself up, but then started to put it out in a carton.
I think you're thinking is it Darcy's who do the port cask. They have the option of having it in the box, the carton, or just the bottle as well. But it's 20 quid more expensive if you want the box. You know, it just shows you if you want something fancy like that, you're going to have to put your hand into your pocket a wee bit deeper, you know.
Yeah, and like they are, once again, the distillery are paying somebody for that, and then pushing the price on to you and I. And the thing is, at that point, at the point of people like Darcy's and all, they're trying to push that onto us, and we know better.
That's right.
You know, because we're actually looking at it and going, no, I'm not paying that for a box. Like,
but it's sort of going on what Nigel said there too, like a wee marketing by proxy, you know. And I was sort of thinking about it, maybe in a way, yes, but I think there's a fine line between marketing and promotion. You know, I'm all for transparency. Like, I get the odd sample and I'll review it, but I'll always be open and honest, saying it was sent to me, and I'll always tell them, if you send it to me, if I don't like it, I'll tell you I don't like it. But for me, transparency tops marketing. You know, if you have what you need on the label, it's like the old saying, isn't it? Keep it simple, stupid.
mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll let the liquid do the talking, because once you get past that generic stage of the drinker who just wants a bottle of something and doesn't really know what they're doing, it's the likes of when you get on a wee bit more to be an enthusiast and you want something more from your whiskey, it's actually the liquid in the bottle that does the talking. And then the word of mouth that the likes of us put out there that actually means more than just a picture, you know.
Exactly. And as you said there's almost that fine. You actually come out with a very good word there, promotion. And there is a bit of a fine line. And I know through working in the shop that good whiskey is easier to promote than bad whiskey. And it's quite funny. There's a few names now that have, and I'm not going to start dropping names. I'm not here to do that. There are a few names, but that when people come into the shop and they say, "What's that like?" and you go, and you don't have to say anything. That is enough. You know, that's enough to put somebody off it. And Funny, there was another one here that I know I talked about this from the last time whenever I was talking about branding, but there's another one. Now this is the new Dunville's branding. It's fairly, I would say new. It's been around a while now. That's probably the 12-year-old PX, or it could be the 10-year-old PX. I think they're identical. And I know I said about this in branding as well. That's the old one. New, better or worse, almost identical. You know, and that's somebody get paid, and I know it was Mark Thompson, lovely fella, a very, very nice chap, but Mark probably get paid quite a bit of money by Shane Braniff and Eckhamville to come up with Dunville's branding and promotion and marketing, and he went from this to this. Now, it's not, you know, as I said before, that's a good photocopier. But fair play.
Yeah, it's
You know,
just
somebody
a bit
don't know,
more vibrant. You know, there's nothing much of a difference about it. It's just probably bringing it more into the modern world. You know, it's like the integrity thing comes into play too. You know, like a lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon of doing whiskey reviews and whatnot. And as you say, a lot of them are like, as you said when you were talking to Nigel, everyone's great. And they'll soon come unstuck, because if they're getting basically paid in kind by free samples and they're not going to say anything bad about the whiskey, or they're not going to be like proper critical about it and breaking it down, you know, people are soon going to see through the pish that they're saying. And they were like, how can you take that person seriously? I bought this because he said it was good. And, you know, I wouldn't even use it to clean the drain, you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's like another, I haven't been drinking. And so I'll go easy here. But it's all about some of these. You're worried now what's coming, aren't you?
No, you're right. I trust you.
I don't trust myself all the time. But, you know, it's like, say when you're younger, you know, you're out for a night and somebody catches your eye, you know, like, you know, and you think, that'll do all right. But, you know, it's all style over substance, you know, not a keeper. You know, it might catch your eye, but you're thinking, fuck, that's going to be high maintenance. You know, you don't want that. You know, it's all like fur coat and no knickers and all that. You know, and you know, they catch your eye and then they wipe your eye. You don't want that. You know, it's all about, you know, having that substance rather than the style. Let the liquid in the bottle do the talking.
We want to get what we're paid for.
Yeah, that's what's going to give you a lasting brand. Because I don't keep buying it.
I don't want to pay somebody for that.
No,
you know that I don't care whether that's on there or not. That matters not to me. I just want something. Sorry, I did notice earlier. Ben did ask what does the VR stand for. It is Victoria Regina. I did see it was Neil come up or said that. Although there's a lot of people think that it stands for very rare. It doesn't. It's Victoria Regina because it was released. The old Dunville's this bottling come out in the early mid sort of 1800s. This was originally around during Victoria's time. So that was why. So they even stuck with the VR on it, whether it was needed or not. So there you are. No, I'll look, mate, you know, as usual, it doesn't matter what way you put it across, you make sense. It makes perfect sense what you were saying there, you know, and
what it is, it's all about, like, it's just because something catches your eye, no matter what it is. It could be a car. You think, Jesus, that's a nice looking car, like a sporty thing. You get into it and you're thinking, and name of God, what was I thinking here, you know? you just need to sort of be grounded, realize that the whiskey industry in general is littered with a lot of BS just to sell, and people really, particularly when they're getting into it, need to listen to people who have been there a while and take it on board, because obviously it's a journey for everybody. You have to start somewhere, but you're not gonna. It's like when I started drinking red wine, and I didn't like it, and the wife was at me for ages, and then one night it just clicked. And what was it? It was it was one of them generic ones, like Marlow. I can't remember which one it was. See now, I can't even drink it. I wondered, how the frig did that get me into red wine? Because I can't even stomach it now.
But it's funny, we've all sort of got to the point where I think we want the full package, and that's why we all listen to each other.
Yeah.
Then it's what somebody said very, very early on. I think it was Helen said it, that it's word of mouth, and especially too, I said it to the other guys before we went live, when you look around and you see what we still want value for money, no matter what we're buying, be it a car, be it, a woman. No, that doesn't work.
I've never had value for money at any of them yet. And I'm fucking married now nearly 18 years, Well, I've probably got money with the wife now, and I had with any of the previous ones. I was engaged a couple of times before. Fuck me, they used to call me Lord of the Rings.
But anyway, right, I'll tell you what, before one of us said something that we shouldn't, let's bring the rest of the boys in, and we'll wrap this up. I don't think, as I say, I don't honestly think we have changed the way we think about it anyway. I think we'll fully agree that we're still, nothing has changed here, has it? We all seen through the crap before we started this. We still, by the end of it, still see through the crap. I think, although what we did realize, and I'm convinced through things that were said, that marketing is required in some shape or form. Would we agree on that?
Oh,
yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, well, for new distilleries and upcoming new brands and whatnot, they needed to get themselves launched. They needed a platform to get them going. You can't rely on word of mouth for a new product.
Yeah.
So obviously, marketing's going to be where they're at.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. No, that's the thing, and I mean, I would listen a lot quicker. Let's put ourselves back in the situation of let's say, either a whiskey. What way would we put this? I think most of us sort of do by word of mouth. The likes of whiskey festivals or anything like that, we're just going to go around and drink as much as we can within reason. But once again, even in that situation, I think we'll go, I heard good things about this, or I heard good things about that guy. So you'll actually lead yourself to the ones, to a certain extent, rather than making our own minds up and going, I like the, we don't tend to go to whiskey festivals or whiskey meetings or anything like that, or even in a bar and see the whiskeys lined up behind the bar and go, I'll have that one. I've never heard anybody talking about it.
Then festivals themselves is marketing.
Oh, full on. It's full on marketing.
That is good marketing. They're just.
But the thing about it is, because the only people that tend, well, I was going to say the only people that tend to go to those things are whiskey enthusiasts, but certainly not where Whiskey Live or Whiskey Social is concerned, because it's just drunks. It's
yeah.
See, if the enthusiast goes to those things, we don't tend to, I've noticed that we don't tend to go for something new. You will go for something that, and it doesn't matter how much they tell you how good their product is. We're still just going to go, nah, you're all right, thanks. I remember a couple of years back, Ben and I doing at the Glasgow Whisky Festival, and this guy doing the hard sell on us for something that was actually a liqueur or something. And we're just like, nah, you're all right, mate. You know, I don't care how nice the bottle looks or how, I don't like the sounds of it, basically. When you started describing it to me, it was just like, nah, you're all right, you can keep it. And the thing is, because it's where our money's going once again. You know, when it comes to actually buying, and maybe we should be more open-minded. I don't know. But money's hard to come by these days. And we don't want to spend it then on something that we don't necessarily know anything about, or maybe we're an untrusting lot.
Try before you buy.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think going to whiskey festivals now, you tend to ask them what they have behind the counter. It's not the core light on the shelf.
What's under the table?
What have you got behind the counter? You want to see? You know, I was at Whiskey Live there. Was that last week or the week before? And like most of the whiskeys I drink, they're all from behind the counter. They're all something that wasn't their core range or for sale. You know, it was maybe an upcoming release in a couple of years' time. It was maybe a new make spirit. You know, so like most of us going to festivals now, if we're
Oh no, I agree with you. And like the doc has said it here. It's just pretty much what you said, Nigel. The main purpose of marketing is to create demand. So festivals are clearly marketing activities, and that is the truth. They're all there to sell their wares. They're all there to try and win us over. So and the easiest way to do that is with good marketing in the first place.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're there looking at something that, but I just think we will still tend, and the proof can be seen that whenever you go to these things, you will see people hoarding around specific stands because
flashy ones.
Yeah, exactly. You know, because they just something's got a name already, and we all know that it's generally good product that they put out. So you go, right, we'll go there. And it doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We'll still love it generally. And the thing was, actually, I discovered that was not necessarily true a couple of years back. Whenever I went to the Springbank stand at the Glasgow Whisky Festival, and they just released the new local barley, and they just released a couple of other ones. I remember just thinking, yeah, it wasn't worth standing queuing up for that. I wasn't actually that impressed by it, but it'll not stop me doing the same the next time around again, because I want to see what's different. I don't know. It's the same. Marketing's a big. I'm sort of glad that we've done this, simply because at least we've done it and we don't have to touch on it again now.
I'm laughing at you say about below the counter. You remember the Glasgow Whisky Festival? Myself and Lee J went straight to the Loch Lomond, and Michael Henry was there. He says, "Have a drink of this bottle. It's a single grain."
Yeah.
We said, right. He says, "That's been rolling about my boot for the last 3 weeks."
That's true. Yeah. Bloody good though.
Incredible. It was incredible too.
But it's funny.
So what you're saying is get all your whiskey bottles, throw them in the boot, and drive about for 3 weeks, and then
That's it.
You see, the other thing to remember is, and once again, this is things that I'm hearing. This is what you hear when you work in a whiskey shop. You see the crap that people think they know about whiskey, and the weirdest. They come out with the weirdest stuff, and you just go, you sort of go to yourself, where did you hear that? Well, I read something, and they put 2 and 2 together and get 5, like, you know, and you just sort of think to yourself, I know, and this is. Most of us here know Roy Aquaviti Duff in some way, shape, or form, or watch his videos, or you know, and he talks about whiskey evangelism. I try my hardest But some people you just go, look, I'm not going to waste my fucking time on you because you the stuff that they're coming out with, and you go, but this is, and another one, just while we're on the subject. I mean, is there any Americans? Drew, I don't think Drew's away. I think Drew's maybe away. Somebody needs to tell America, all of America, that bourbon can be made anywhere in America, because I'm sick of Americans coming in and telling me it can only be made in Kentucky. Now, I know this is maybe nothing to do with marketing, but the amount of times I hear that, it's just not true. So sorry, I just wanted to get it out there. Annoys me.
Just look at MGP, it's in Indiana, so
you know what? It's one of those things. But as I say, that's a prime example of misconceptions, people not understanding certain things. And I know, as I said, then that Roy would be the first one to say, well, it's whiskey. You should be teaching people that stuff. And as I say, I do try, but that's me. Is that marketing? What is that? What am I doing then? By doing that,
Educating people.
Yeah.
Aye.
But some people just don't want to be educated.
No,
you can lead a horse to
the
water.
detail holder just doesn't do it.
They just smile and nod at that point and go, okay.
A lot of people just want to smell the American oak, and then they just go, huh?
Well, like Jim, the position you're working in is pretty end, so the people who do not want to be told they're
I know, I'm still trying to sell the stuff. That's the problem. It doesn't matter.
It's like the same old.
It basically becomes a point where you go, did I just become condescending there? And I sort of, I don't know.
It's like the same old thing, isn't it? Irish whiskey smooth, Scotch whiskey peaty and smoky, bourbon's sweet. All just general isms that are
exactly, Al.
BS.
Exactly. That is one. You're 100. I think you've actually pretty much nailed it. I don't like Scotch whiskey. No, what you mean is I don't like peaty whiskey. Irish whiskey smooth. Bourbon's all made in Kentucky. Just got a wee add to the bottle fund from Ben there. A wee bump for your Glasgow Whiskey Festival fund, Ben. Very much appreciate it, mate. Very, very much appreciate it. Right, let's wrap it up. That went an awful lot longer on marketing than I expected it to. And people come in and out, and I've probably missed a few, but Whiskey and Wine Trails was in there. Bob, good to see you. Gentlemen, hang about in the background. We'll have a wee chat in a moment. But thank you all for joining me once again. Neil, good to see you back. Al, good to see you. Full stop. Good to see you looking well. Nigel, cheers, buddy. Lee J, thank you. Graham, very, very good to see you again. It was a pleasure as always. Gentlemen, I will speak to you in a moment. Cheers.
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 Yes, there they go. I will just hide them away in the background. It's always good to see them. It's weird. It's always good to see you all. It's always good to see people in the chat. But it's funny because I don't see these guys from month to month. I don't see them as regularly as I would like to. We may actually be going out for a drink this Saturday. I'm not quite sure. There's plans, but I don't know. Might happen, might not. Paul Gibbs in late as usual. Paul, we're gone. We're on our way out, but thank you. Good to see you. So no, look, marketing, as I said, I don't think we've changed anything. I don't think anything's changed there at all. Really, marketing does not matter. Although I do think there were some very good points made there tonight. I do. So, and I still think that then marketing is obviously required in some way, shape, or form, whether we like it or not. Folks, it has been good to see you all again. I'll probably be back in June at some point for another one. Don't know what we're going to talk about. Genuinely don't. I have had ideas in my head as to what to go on the live things about, but I just they come and they go and then they slip out of my head. But they'll come back. They'll come back. I'll see you in June. And thank you very much for the support once again. Look after yourselves. Here's your good health. Cheers.